there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learned an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to the podcast Being Human, Hidden Depths with me, Jill Tiny. And this week I'm really proud and pleased to announce that we have the infamous, famous James Knight, who has just joined us. He is one of our newest members at Collaboration Global, but James and I go back a long way. So I'm really pleased to have you join us today, James. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Lovely. The thing is, we know so much about each other, and yet we probably have only just scratched the surface. But we were just saying how much we can talk for England. We should get gold medals for our conversations that do go on, because we are so aligned in what we want to do, in what our big, audacious goal is, big, fat, audacious goal. But also we're coming from different directions, but achieving the same thing. So, on the one hand, it was a surprise that you joined us, but on the other hand, it just made perfect sense. It was really funny because we've been jogging along in parallel for a long, long time. So what was the sort of final thing that made you go, do you know what, I'm going to get involved with that community? That sounds like a good idea.
Well, I think primarily it was just because it was something you were involved with. I had something on my refrigerator when I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I grew up, and it said, "Hearts speak to hearts and actions not in words." And it is something where I found that if you like the people you're working with, you like everything about it. And so if you were involved in something and you felt passionate about it, it attracted me to it.
Oh, that's lovely. And I agree. You've got to have fun as you're going along in life's way, haven't you? Otherwise, it's too much like hard work. If you're not enjoying yourself, it doesn't quite work, does it? And already you've made a beautiful dent in the community in that you've explained about IMA, which is the thing that attracted me to you in the first place. I do remember one of our first conversations, although we met online through Academy. So a little nod to Thomas and Penny Power for indirectly introducing us. But I remember going to a hotel in London where you were putting on an event, and you had some T-shirts with a high yellow on it. And I'm like, oh, I want one of those. I'll have one of those. Thank you. And I still have it to this day. I should have worn it today, really, shouldn't I? Because that was, I don't know, was that relatively at the beginning of IMA, or were you well established at that point?
Well, at that time, I think when we met, I was having high yellow get-togethers and high yellow lunches and things like that. But maybe in the way of explanation, when I joined Academy, that was back in, I think, 2007.
Gosh.
I joined this community of literally thousands of people, and I looked at their pictures, but I really didn't know what these people were all about. And so I started by developing a questionnaire that would answer the questions that I would look for if I met someone. And when someone wanted to connect with me, I would say, to help us understand one another better, would you mind answering a few questions? And so when they answered the questions, I would write back and say, you are a high red, yellow, green, or blue. And that was the start of what is now the online version of what IMA is all about. So a lot of it started on the online community with the Academy group. Eventually, Thomas and Penny recognize the value of it, because I had several thousand people join the different clubs, High Yellow Club, High Green, High Blue.
Yeah.
And then they asked if I would include it into their program, and that's what we did. So 65,000 people actually had the little, what I call images, that are
cartoon
their name, with tips to connect with them. And so that was a very a wonderful time for me.
Yeah, it was. I can remember. I mean, it was relatively early on in my solo career. Obviously, I've got businesses with my husband as well, but it was a very exciting time, and I felt the Academy, there was a definite buzz there. But when you were talking to our community in one of our members' meetings a couple of weeks ago, you said when you first came to the UK, and this resonated with me really a lot, that you'd walk up and down the height, and go out and you'd say good morning to people, and you said you spoke to strangers, and it's like, oh my God, it's Britain, you don't do that in England. And
what's wrong with this man? You know.
But do you know what? That's what I do. It's really weird that to my kids' annoyance, it's like, oh God, she's talking to someone she doesn't know again. But I'm fascinated with people, and I get that you have this fascination with, you want to know everything. It's like going into a library and looking at all the books and knowing you're never going to have time to read them all. And it's a bit like that with people. You want to meet as many people as possible, because they've all got gold going on inside. They've all got these amazing thoughts and feelings and genius that's happening that we need to kind of unpack. So what I'm interested in is, that was James when he first came to the UK. So was that always James? Were you like a 5-6-year-old going off and chatting to the local shopkeepers, or what was it like growing up?
Well, I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and in the way of an introduction, I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For anybody that is not familiar with where it's located, it's the state that looks like a mitten, and it's in the Midwest. It's surrounded by the Great Lakes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the second most cloudy state in the U.S. because of all of the condensation and everything, with the being surrounded by water. So that being the case, we have very limited sunshine in Michigan. So I felt really at home coming to England here.
Home from home.
But I grew up in Grand Rapids. I have one brother, and I went to school. Grand Rapids is in the center of the state, or not very. It's midway between Detroit and Chicago, so it's kind of like midway between the two.
Right.
And that worked really well for us when I was growing up, because during the time that I was growing up, Motown was really making a big with the change in the music and the exciting times in that way. And because of the fact that Grand Rapids was between Detroit and Chicago, all of the acts, all of the musical acts and everything that were going, either playing in Detroit or in Chicago, would stop in Grand Rapids and they would play. And so it was just a wonderful place to grow up.
So who are your memories of people that you saw perform?
Well, actually, I used to roller skate when I was starting 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
And even Dion DiMucci with Run Around Sue, and he did a lot of really very popular songs that you still hear today. He just sang at our roller rink, as an example. Or Del Shannon was another one. God. So that being the case, that played an important part of my life. The Four Seasons, and all of that. So that was my life growing up in Grand Rapids.
Oh my goodness! Have you been, just as an aside, because one of my passions is theatre? Have you been to see what was the show about the Four Seasons?
Oh yes, yeah, I know. It's just it escaped.
Got the name.
But anyway, I did. Yes, I did that.
That was
in fact, for a birthday present, Last year, Frankie Valli was going to be singing, and my family got me the tickets to go to Frankie Valli. Unfortunately, it wasn't available because of the pandemic.
Man, that is a big disappointment.
So July. I doubt if he'll be over for that as well. So, but anyway, the music. In answer to your question, I've always been basically the same person, even though what happens is that our confidence grows. We get, with successful experiences, you have confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be interested in knowing, when I was driving down the road with my wife, Elaine, back a couple years ago, I hit a pothole. And Elaine said, James, I don't know. She said, normally when people drive, they try to avoid potholes, but you just seem to aim right for them. And so I've been just hitting those bumps in the road ever since I was young. And so the value that I hope that I can bring to relationships and to people is that there isn't almost anything that people can't go through that I haven't gone through at some time in my life.
Wow.
So knowing that, you can look at things from another person's point of view if you have experienced something similar to that. And that's been a good portion of my life. I've had a number of it, but I've always been a dreamer, always latching on to dreams that get so big I can't let go. And do you want an example of that? Because you asked me.
Yeah, go for it.
Some things that maybe a lot of people might not know. My first, I managed a McDonald's restaurant when I was 17 years old.
Woohoo!
And I actually, part of the reason for it, I lied my age at the time when I started with McDonald's, and I started working with them when I was 15. And I was a manager. I won't tell you what happened as a result of that because we don't have time for all of that. But I've always been an entrepreneur, always looking for ways to just do things differently. I think I got that from my dad because, I can remember the very first time with my father. He was a lot like that too. We were at church and I noticed him looking at the kneelers. And the next thing I know, and this was when I was really young, the next thing I know, he was talking to the priest. And the next thing I know, the next Saturday, I was taking the tax out of the kneelers, and my dad had convinced the priest that they needed to be reupholstered. And so we ended up reupholstering the thing. So my father was always looking for a way to make a little
I love that.
Do that type of thing.
That's perfect. I have to tell you my little McDonald's story, not from personal experience, but just to get an idea of, it doesn't matter where you started, it's where you're going that makes the difference. I met a guy who started with McDonald's, literally, the sweeping the floor, and then all the way through to general manager or whatever. I don't think he ever bought a franchise, but he learned everything. He learned how to systemize everything. So he decided he was going to take that knowledge and get himself a window cleaning round.
Yes.
And he saved up some money, so he had like 3 months worth of salary so that he could make his window cleaning round work. He said on day one, he said, I went out to knock on doors and get some customers and start cleaning their windows. He said it was pouring down with rain. I knocked on 100 doors and I got to clean 2 people's windows, and I earned like £10.
Yes.
He said I was so demoralized and so, I'm going to pack it all in. That's it. I can't do this. This is ridiculous. But he didn't stop. He had the dream and the system that he knew would work. So he kept on and he kept on. He kept on. Within 2 years, 2 years, he's turning over £2 million a year.
Yes.
Because now he is connected to people that do skydiving and things, and they clean the windows of the Gherkin. Yes. That's his company. That's what he does. So he doesn't just do residential, which is a whole other stream of his company, but he does all the offices and the big, big buildings. I don't know if he does the Shard, but he certainly does some of the big boys that are out there at the time. And it's like, no matter what your seed of, just plant that seed and get it going, and you never know where it's going to take you. And he was like, blew my mind of like, well, and it wasn't that long, and he'd only been doing the job for about, I mean, 2 years he was turning over 2 million, but I saw him like 7 years in. So if you just think 7 years ago, he was working in McDonald's.
Yes, well, that is the thing. There's an old Chinese saying, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you can see farther.
Love it, yeah.
And so if you move into what Emerson said, you have only to move in the direction of your dreams to meet with success unexpected in common hours. And so for myself, I've always been moving in the direction of my dreams.
Yeah.
And so one thing would lead to another. If I could just share with you one story, because I've always been an entrepreneur, and I know many of the people that are going to be listening to this are entrepreneurs.
Yes.
But when one of my first experiences as an entrepreneur, I owned a dancewear supply company called Dance Warehouse. And we supplied ballet slippers and tap shoes and all of that type of thing to dance schools. And I had a van, and I would go to the teachers and then fit up the kids all at one time.
Right.
But I had a store, and I had we would have people coming in for costumes, and they would ask, because of when the dancers came in, I decided that I would send the manager to to do costumes, to make costumes. Well, a lady came in and she said, I'm a member of a belly dance class, and do you have any belly dance costumes? And I said, no. And she said, oh, well, she says, you really should, because, it's becoming very popular for exercise here in the United States, very popular. And there's no place to get costumes. So that's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
So the next thing is I looked up, and there wasn't any internet at that time, but I looked and I found that, first of all, the classes were being conducted in YWCAs across the country, and it was looked upon as an exercising class. But what happens was that ladies would go and they'd take the classes, but they would bring curtains and different things like that for their skirts and their veils and all of that. So I locked myself away for the weekend, and I bought an album on Middle Eastern music, and I literally created a complete line of belly dancing costumes and accessories. I invented the styles, the prices, the colors.
Yeah.
And my idea was I'd make a catalog. So I had an artist draw the costumes that I had designed, and I mailed out 2,000 of the catalogs to every YWCA in the country. Now, my idea was, why make these things if nobody would buy them?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I'll see if I can get orders, first of all. Then as the orders started coming in, that's when I figured out how to make them to look like the catalog.
Yeah, perfect.
And I created the names, the Evening in Cairo, Sultan's Fancy, the descriptions.
Brilliant.
In the catalog, I put, send us your bra and we'll build a costume around it.
That's a good idea.
Thinking, from the sizing standpoint.
Yes, yeah.
And then as orders came in, then I hired ladies, people around, little cottage industry, seamstresses that would actually make things that looked like the pictures.
Perfect.
And I can remember my dad saying, because I got my dad involved and my mom involved, and my dad would say, fuchsia, why did you put fuchsia in the catalog? He said, I can't find the fabric fuchsia anywhere. And so anyway, what happened was I put a picture of a finger symbol, belly dancers called them zills, in the catalog.
Right.
And then when I tried to order them from my dancewear supplier, I found that they weren't available. They were being imported from Japan, and they weren't available. So I asked my dad, I said, what am I going to do? I've got orders coming in for Zills, and they're not available. So my dad looked at it and he says, we can make these darn things. All we need to do is make a die, and we could stamp these out. And so the first thing I did is I called the supply house in Chicago, and I said, if we could make those, would you buy them from us? And he said, well, if you can make a good sample, we can. So I'll never forget it, because the cost of the die to build it was $415.
That's a lot of money.
It was a lot of money at that time.
Yeah.
Back all those years ago.
I'll bet.
And so we ended up having to go to a finance company to borrow the money for the die.
Oh gosh,
so anyway, this is a long story.
Yeah.
But what happened as a result of it is I sent a sample of the finger symbols to the danceware supply house.
Mm-hmm.
And the man who owned the danceware supply house, his name was Eddie, he stuttered. And Eddie said, when he got nervous, and I said, Eddie, did you receive the samples? And he said, yes. And I said, how did they look? And he said, they look really good. He said, I said, he said, how much are they? And I told him they're $223.20 a gross. Now, the reason I picked $223.20 is I felt that if I could sell 2 gross of those finger symbols, that it would pay for the die.
Yep.
And Eddie stuttered, and when he got nervous, and he said, will you please send me 15 gross? The next thing is he called me back in the afternoon, and he said, my brother owns Herbert Theatrical in Chicago, in New York. Can you send him 15 gross too?
How many did you
overnight? We sold 30 gross of finger symbols.
Wow.
And to make a long story short, we ended up being the largest manufacturer of finger symbols in the United States.
Well, who would have thought? I mean, that's one of those things on that TV program, Would I Lie to You? Well, has James Knight ever designed belly dancing wear and sold symbols, finger symbols? And you go, no, of course not. James does that communication thing.
When we retired that guy,
wow,
it had stamped out 250,000 finger symbols.
I'm surprised it's still not going now. My goodness.
Well, I got my mom and my dad involved in it, and we became like a major manufacturer of belly dancing costumes and accessories in the United States, and did mail order. I had a mail order house and so on. And so when the internet came along and all of that, it was just kind of like a natural for me.
Yeah.
So I've been marketing and doing different things like that, always with the idea that your mind is the connecting link between the formed and the unformed world. What you think can turn into the reality with which you live. So I've just simply learned at an early age to turn your mind into rich directions and to think along the lines of what it is that I want and keep it off what I don't want, which is, I think, is really important as well.
You speak in sort of bumper stickers, but it's so true. It's some of the stuff that you come up with. I'm making little notes here because I love some of the things that you were saying. Move in the direction of your dreams. Well, it's like, duh, but at the same time, how many people do you know that have this dream and go, and what are you doing about it? And it's like, and there's no movement in that direction. They're just going, oh, well, one day. Well, no, it won't happen one day unless you do something today to make it come to fruition.
Yes. We're all filled with doubts and self-doubts. And it was Shakespeare that said our doubts are traitors and make us lose what we oft might find by failing to attempt. Our fears are failure. Our fears, and focusing on our fears is something that brings about a reality in our life. So these are some of the messages that I would like to deliver. And if somebody's investing time to listen to this particular podcast or whatever,
Mm.
and you asked me what messages would I like to convey? Well, I'd like to convey some things that I have learned throughout my life,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully can be of value to other people.
Well, you've given us a little gold mine already, and we haven't even got to the good stuff. I mean, you've just been talking McDonald's and finger symbols so far.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Now, when I first met you, you talked about Dale Carnegie, and you worked in that organization for a little bit. How did you get into that?
It was at the same time when I was, and keep in mind, when you're an entrepreneur, okay, it's a struggle because it's how do you keep the roof on? How do you keep money coming in?
Yeah.
All of these different things. How do I overcome my fear and everything? And one of the things that I did is I managed a health club in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was a health spa.
Okay.
And one day a man came in and he signed up for the course. Now, normally, I found I had to sell people on the idea that they had to take better care of themselves.
Right.
But with this guy, I didn't have to do that. He just walked in and he just said, I want to join. And I thought, wow, this is easy. There's got to be something wrong. And so I asked him, what do you do for a living? And he said, well, I work for the Dale Carnegie organization. And I said, oh, that sounds fascinating, because I'd heard about Carnegie and the How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah,
and so on.
that's the famous book, isn't it?
So his name was Don Davies. And when Don would come in for doing a workout or something, I'd talk with him and he'd give me tips, selling tips on how to become more effective in my sales. And so, as an example, I was having a difficulty getting people to make a decision on something. And he said, have you ever used the Ben Franklin T? And I said, no, I don't know. What is the Ben Franklin T? And he said, well, when people have difficulty making a decision, simply make a T, and on one side, put reasons to hesitate, and on the other side, reasons to go ahead.
Yeah.
And then help people for the reasons that they're hesitating, and then say, now, what might be the reasons for you to go ahead? And then you simply say which side weighs the heaviest.
Perfect.
And when people can see it on paper, then they can actually make a logical decision on something.
Yeah.
So
and just to stop you there, that whole idea is rather than persuade them or kind of get them into a corner, you're just helping them. You're helping them to make a very equitable, easy decision. I mean, you're hoping it's going to go in your favor, and 9 times out of 10, if it's the best thing for them. But if it's written down in paper without any pressure tactics of, if you sign before, this 24 hours, you get 50% off, then it's just the kind thing to do. It's not sales, is it? It's just like help you make your decision.
Help people to make a decision.
Beautiful. I like that.
So what was happening is I was spending a great deal of time, energy, everything else working within the health club. And one day I decided, well, I needed to make a career change. And I told Don, I said, Don, you work with a lot of companies. Do you know of any organization that might be looking for a good sales representative? And he said, well, James, have you ever thought about the Dale Carnegie organization? He said, because I think we might have an opportunity for you there. And so I did. I started with the Carnegie organization. And that was a real turning point in my life. And part of the reason for that I'll mention is when I started, my job was to actually help enroll people in a public speaking course. The Dale Carnegie courses used public speaking as a vehicle to the help and the development of self-confidence, communication skills, human relations, and enthusiasm. So the idea is if you can stand on your feet in front of a group, get your ideas across, express yourself effectively, you can be more confident, but also much better at communicating. So I started with Carnegie. And the first thing is I decided that I was going to immerse myself in reading about everything. So I stayed in the office studying.
Mm.
After about a week, my boss, who was like the main boss, Don's boss,
Right.
walked by my office and the office I was in, and he said, "You know, I really admire the way you're approaching your new career." And my reaction was, what is he trying to tell me? Now, I was used to, if he would have said, "Hey, you're the new guy, you're parked in my parking space, will you park at the back of the lot?"
Mm-hmm.
That was more what I was used to than what he had just expressed, appreciation
Yeah.
of what I was doing. So the job that they had hired me for was to organize Carnegie classes and to get people to pay a lot of money. It was $345 at the time
Wow.
to spend one night a week for 14 weeks doing something that they hated, standing on their feet in front of a group.
Mm.
So it wasn't an easy job.
No.
And then the second thing is that in most sales jobs, when you make a sale, you get paid. But with Carnegie, you had to fill a minimum class of 32 and a maximum of 40. So you had to make 30 sales,
Yeah.
40 sales in order to get paid.
Wow.
So it wasn't an easy job.
Mm.
But what did happen to me at that time, Jill, and I think this is a really important message that I might have for anybody listening to this, is Bill told me, "I really admire the way that you are approaching your new career." This was after about the first week.
Mm.
Then another week went by. He walked by my office. He didn't walk in. He glanced in. And I got this sudden feeling like the honeymoon was over and I was supposed to be doing something else.
Oh.
Like maybe you're not new anymore, just get on with it or something. So I knocked on his door and I said, "Bill, I want you to know I really want to be successful here. But the truth of the matter is I don't know what to say and I don't know who to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really scared because I want to be successful here, but I don't know who to see and I don't know what to say when I see them." So he said, "Well, James, it's very obvious you don't know your fundamentals." He said, "Here," and he slid across a track presentation across the desk. And he said, "I want you to memorize this and learn it like you had invented it yourself. And when you know it that well, come back and give it to me." And so that's what I did. I went back to the office, played it back into the recorder. I kept developing it. He gave me a script to operate from,
Mm-hmm.
then presented the Dale Carnegie course to him in his office. And he said, "You're ready now. Just go on out and talk to people."
Right.
And after about the first maybe 2 or 3 days, I made my first sale. I made my first enrollment, and then another one, and then another one.
Yeah.
And I gave that same presentation every time.
Yeah. And it worked.
Turned out that a man by the name of Lou Gallo, who was a district manager, came in from New York because Bill said, "Hey, I think we got somebody good to work with here." And Bill told me, he said, "I think that you could really become a really great Carnegie representative."
Oh.
He said, "And you could become a member of the 250 Club." So I said, "What's the 250 Club?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, that's like the top 10 of all Carnegie representatives in the world." He said, you're given an award by Mrs. Carnegie at the National Convention." And I thought, I want that.
Yes.
And then he said, but I want to warn you. He said, it's never been done in your first year before. And I said, I want that. And so that's what I did. And I went on to get that award for that first year,
Wow.
second, third, fourth, fifth year. And but it was, here's the thing. I always gave the same script that I had studied for in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the idea is that there are certain fundamentals that you need to know and invest your time in that before you go on to anything else. So
Yeah.
that's my Carnegie story anyway.
That is so true. That is so true. I mean, it takes me back to my early days when I first started networking. And I went and the business that I was helping to run with my husband was stationery. So I would go to a BNI meeting, which was very early in the morning, and everyone was very keen to go to BNI. It was the in thing at the time. This was back in 2007, something like that. And I didn't want to do it because I wasn't a morning person. I told myself I wasn't a morning person.
And they are really early. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I spent the first 6 weeks trying to work out how to get out of it. But because I didn't get it, I didn't understand it. And then they had a visitors day and they said, look, the more people you speak to and bring in, the better your chances of getting business. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that obvious? Doesn't everyone kind of do that? So we had these scripts, which again, I doctored and I changed and, you know, and this is how you do it. And I was like, okay, so I went on a course to find out how to do it. And then we had a visitors day and there were 16 people in the room, visitors, plus the members. And at the end, you go around, you know, thank you for having me. And it's really nice to be invited and all that kind of thing. And the first person was, thank you to the chapter director for inviting me. It's really nice to be here. Then somebody said, thank you, Jill. Then somebody else said, thank you, Jill. And then somebody else said, thank you to Fred. Really nice to be here. Then it was Jill.
Yes.
You know, and it was like this revelation of like, I can do this stuff. Maybe, although I have to get up ridiculously early, maybe it's something that is natural for me and everybody else finds it really, really difficult. Yes. Even though there's a process to be learned and anybody can learn the process.
Yes.
Not many, we were talking about this before we even started. It's that people don't, you know, they've got it in front of them, but they don't take that opportunity.
Yes.
They don't grab it with both hands. And you, I don't know what age you were at that point, but you kind of like, there's this golden nugget of going, you know, oh, you won't get it done in the first year. Oh, hello, that's a challenge. And you probably won't get it the second year. Oh, I think I will. How about 3 years and 4 years?
The other part about it is that I'm a high yellow.
Mm-hmm.
High yellows, part of it is we have a tendency to latch onto dreams that get so big we can't let go.
Uh-huh.
We need pats on the back, job well done, recognition. So all I needed to know was if I could do that and be on that stage and get that applause from the people that I work with, that's all I needed. And so I told my wife at that time, my son's mom, I'm not coming home until I make a sale, because I had to make one sale a day for a year in order to get to that particular position.
Right.
But it wasn't for the money. It was absolutely for the recognition and for the applause.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've highlighted now, James, let's move on to the next part of your life now, because you kind of, you know what you're thirsty for. And it is that kind of acknowledgement and recognition, as you say, the applause, as us high yellows are, you know, don't like to admit it, but it's the truth. So
well, it is. There isn't anything wrong with that. But I wanted to say that that's not all. One of the things that happened when I was with Carnegie and I saw the magic that happened within the Carnegie classes, where people would stand on their feet and they would talk about something they were an expert on, and they would take, you'd have people that couldn't lead a group in silent prayer. And you get that same person after having 14 weeks of successful speaking experiences to see their confidence grow, because the class was conducted under an umbrella of positive acceptance and approval. There was no criticism, no condemnation, no complaining. Emphasis is placed on what they did right. not what they should have done or should have said.
Mhm.
And as a result of that sincere appreciation, when people would get up and give a talk, the instructor would say, "What did you like about that talk?" And the emphasis was on that.
Yeah, it's
And
lovely.
so it was on building on people's strengths.
Mm.
So what I would encourage everyone to do is that Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that
Mhm.
was written in 1938.
Yeah.
All the books that have been written and all the changes that have been taking place, that book is still on the best-selling list of not only the all-time bestsellers, but it's the best-selling every year. It's the best-selling.
Yes. Yeah. And they have now got an updated version, which is saying the same thing, but for the current world. So it's How to Win Friends and Influence People with Social Media.
Well, that's fine because the Carnegie principles and fundamentals are the same.
Exactly.
Now, what has happened is this. Things have changed around us, but people haven't changed. So how it gets back to IMA again, and that's when I started to develop IMA, was for myself. And
Right.
I developed it for myself because Dale Carnegie, the first rule in how to win friends and influence people is become genuinely interested in others.
Yeah.
Rule number 5 is talk in terms of the other person's interest.
Yeah.
And rule number 8 is look at things from the other person's point of view.
Yeah. Perfect.
So I set out to find a way for me to be able to sell more, sell better.
Mm-hmm.
I used Dale Carnegie's fundamentals of become genuinely interested as the starting point.
Mm.
That's how IMA came about today, is I developed it myself. Much of Carnegie principles, fundamentals, and concepts are all woven into to IMA because these are the ways of helping connect with people and treating people the way they want to be treated.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, and it's what you say many times is it's very simple, but it goes very deep. And that is one of the things that attracted me about it, because having done Myers-Briggs and disc profiles and everything, it was like you answer all these questions and then they send you this great big report. I'm like, get to the gist of it. Just tell me the important bits, you know. And the nice thing about IMA is that, you know, it's a very short questionnaire, but you go bang, 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 bang. And it's like, oh, yes, I get it. It's brilliant. And it's just so simple that you can take it on board within an hour, 2 hours to get the basics. And obviously you can go deeper if you want to, but it just starts the ball rolling so you can use it immediately.
Yes.
So give us some examples, James, of what, you know, the 4 different colors. Just give us a synopsis of how we can identify ourselves kind of loosely without doing the questionnaire, but obviously we will welcome people to use the questionnaire.
Happy to do that. But before I do, I just wanted to mention one thing, and that is somebody said one time, before you tell me what you know, tell me who your teachers were. And so in my particular case, when I was with Carnegie as a Carnegie representative, I was invited to Chicago to attend a presentation by a man by the name of Dr. James Nolan. And Dr. Nolan had created the very first computerized psychometric called the Personalisus. Now, when I sat in Dr. Nolan's presentation, and it was his very first presentation on the Personalisus.
Wow.
He came from Houston, Texas, and the idea was people would answer 100 questions. Dr. Nolan would put it into his computerized program, and you'd get 14 pages of information back about yourself.
Right.
So when I sat in Dr. Nolan's presentation, there were about 30 or 40 of us Carnegie representatives there. I was blown away with the information. And I started then working with Dr. Nolan, introducing the Personalisus into the companies that I was working with Carnegie.
Right.
that gave me an insight into the how the pattern programmed and predictable behavior. But as extensive and wonderful as Dr. Nolan's program was, it had its limitations, because every time I met somebody, I couldn't ask them to fill out a questionnaire, send it into Houston, pay $250 before I figured out how to treat that person.
Yeah.
So that's when I developed kind of like a streamlined version, because Dr. Nolan was dealing with red, yellow, green, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
But I only felt like I don't need that much information. I just need to know how to treat somebody in the way they want to be treated. So I developed a high red, high yellow, high green, high blue, just the highest point on the graph, and so how to predict how people are likely to behave and to treat them the way they want to be treated. And that's what IMA is today. That's how it's grown.
Okay. Good to
So
know.
the idea behind IMA is this, is that even though every person is as unique as their thumbprint, each of us has a systematic framework or comfort zone where we feel the most comfortable most of the time in most situations. And although there are some 7 billion people on the planet, there are not 7 billion comfort zones. There are only 4, which is their IMA high color. And if you know what their IMA high color is, you know how that person feels most comfortable thinking, making decisions, using time, managing their emotions, and what they want, need, and expect from you and others. Now, there are 2 elements of IMA, and as you mentioned, it's simple. So, and to point out, IMA is not a psychometric.
No.
It's not an in-depth psychological report that talks about what makes people tick, but it's based on behavior, something that is there for everybody to see if you know what to watch and listen for. And in the area of the 2 elements, one is their level, a person's level of openness. Some people are very open, sharing and showing their feelings, entering into relationships, allowing others to enter into relationships with them. Some people feel more comfortable keeping more of a mental and physical distance. Some people, and the second element is the pace with which people operate. Some people want to do things fast. Some people want to do things a little slower. So within those 2 elements, you've got 4 possible combinations, and you've got the IMA style, the comfort zone of every person on the planet. So just to give you an example, and I do have these I can hold up here, and just to give you a quick overview.
For those of you that are listening on your iPod or whatever, if you go to our YouTube channel, Collaboration Global,
I've got what I call images. My idea behind it initially was that, okay, it was puzzle pieces all fitting together, and to make every puzzle piece come alive. So the puzzle piece that I have for high blue, a high blue is a person that's pleasant, cooperative, a people person, loves people, oozes empathy. If you tell them something sad, they'll cry with you. If you tell them something happy, they'll genuinely be happy with you and for you. Great listener, loyal friend, devoted employee. So that's high blue. High green are left brain thinking and more non-assertive, as well as high blue. More serious, analytical, perfectionistic, loving logic, adoring accuracy, and cherishing efficiency. People that are left brain thinking and assertive are high reds. High reds are great administrators, delegators, doers. They can move mountains. People are in awe of their ability to figure out what needs to be done and do it. And people that are right brain thinking and very open, sharing and showing their feelings, and preferring and more comfortable operating at a fast pace are high yellows. High yellows are outgoing, enthusiastic, people, thrive on being where the action is, chatty, expressive, fun-loving, and coming up with ideas all the time. which is
That
myself.
would be me. Yep. But what you've emphasized many times before is there is no right or wrong, and we are all shades. We're all part of the rainbow.
Each color has amazing areas of brilliance.
Yes.
So once you identify your area of brilliance, which is your I'm a color, the idea is to do a lot with what you do well and connect with other I'm a colors that are brilliant in areas that you are not.
For
and
sure.
So jobs have colors just like people do. And
Yeah.
I'll just give you an example of that. Think of a job right now. Think of any job.
Yeah. Postman.
Okay, don't tell me the job.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll think of a different one.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions about the job. Don't tell me what the job is. First of all, is the job task-oriented or relationship-oriented?
Relationship.
Okay. Now, within that, is it something where you need somebody to initiate things and get started with it, or is it more fine-tuning and finishing something?
Someone to start it.
Okay. So what you've got for somebody that is relationship to getting things started, you've got high yellows. So you want high yellows in that particular job.
Yes, that makes sense.
So jobs, put the right person in the right job and you'll get the right results.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah. It's very simple. I remember you telling a story, or actually one of the guys that is one of your practitioners coming in and telling a story about how he had told the sales director not to talk to the staff first thing in the morning because she would come through and sweep through, and she wasn't a high yellow, but the sales team were high yellows. So she was just demoralizing the sales team from the get-go, and she had to learn to deal with them in a different way because she was a red. And she was kind of like,
exactly. Yeah, that's the Auto Traders story, because Auto Traders was one of the first organizations that embraced IMA here in the UK. And the idea behind it is this, that there are two types of income. There's the financial income that pays the bills, but there's also the psychic income where we get our emotional rewards from doing what we're doing. Now, companies a lot of times focus in on the financial rewards, but they overlook the most important thing, which is getting the emotional rewards and the psychic income from doing what you're doing. And so what happens is that everybody needs to realize you can't do it alone. You need the help, support, and cooperation of others to get whatever it is that you want and need.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is the premise, albeit I hadn't written it down in that way, of Collaboration Global, from the perspective that you come together, you understand and discover what your genius is, what your natural talent is, and then you share that with other people. You share your good stuff, you help them, you support them, and in turn, they do the same for you, knowing that you're not out there to steal their clients or to copy their IP or anything like that. It's about maximizing what you do and have the people around you that want to help you and support you as well. So what I love is somebody will come to the table at a Collaboration Global meeting and say, like, I've got this dream and I want to do this and I want to do that. And then they'll be like, fantastic, that's awesome. When are you going to be doing that? You know, and it's like the challenge is there, but the support is there. And what do you need? And how can I help make it come true? And if you're in a community of people that want to just help each other's dreams come true, you know, and we're not all sitting there as high yellows who are thinking like way beyond the realms of possibility, because my dreams that come true is having this conversation today. It's like our words will go out there and help people to go, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. That's really, so if I do that, then maybe that, I'm going to go and do that, you know, the questionnaire and find out what color I am. If that gets done today because of the result of our conversation, then that's my dream come true.
Yes, and you see, the reason we're perfectly in tune on this is that we have the same mission, which is, okay, helping people, okay, and giving them an advantage of some sort. It was Emerson that said, what I need most is someone to force me to be as good as I'm capable of being.
Yeah.
This is what you are doing. You are helping people, force them to become good by holding them accountable for something.
Mm.
And so we're doing this together. We both believe in the universal law of service that says our rewards in life are direct proportion to our contribution and to our service and to our ability to contribute to other people's success and happiness and so on.
Yeah.
So what happens is it comes back to us in many ways.
For sure.
And so it's all about, there's only one way that you can control anything that's happening now, and it's through giving. And so by giving people what they need, want, and expect, then it creates a world that we all deserve to live in. And so that's why I'm with you today, you know?
That's fabulous. And a lot of people will listen to this and go, oh, that's a bit cheesy. That's a bit, oh, for goodness sake. But if you acknowledge that the vast majority of people who are out to con or scam or hack or are not particularly nice people, I believe wholeheartedly they are in the absolute minority. Maybe the 0.5% of people in the world act like that. So if you treat everybody as though they are your brother and you come to them from a place of love and support and help, then 99.99999 times out of 100, that will come back to you.
There's nobody that's going to be listening to this right now that that feels that way, that it's cheesy or whatever, because of the idea is that we're all everybody in business has the same questions. Where do I spend my time? Where do I spend my energy? What do I focus my attention on? I was with my dentist a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him, I said, I've always been envious of dentists and doctors. And he said, why? And I said, because you never have had to go out and look for clients. all you have to do is put a sign out, and your waiting room is full.
Yes.
The reason for that is when people are in pain, they look for a solution. Now, I have been in the area of personal growth and development for a good portion of my career, and people have been uncomfortable, but the pain hasn't been so great so that it has forced them to do something. Until now, the massive change, the revolution that we're going through has forced people. They're saying, I'm at the end of my wick. I don't know what to do. Now, when people are in pain, they look for a solution. Unfortunately, some people look in the wrong place for the solution. They self-medicate with drugs and with alcohol and gambling and food and so many different things that cause more pain. But at the end of the day, if we just invest this in ourselves and say, help us understand why we do what we do. And this is what how IMA can help you understand why things have happened to you the way that you do. It's not only what color are you, it's what color is my partner, what color are my business associates, what color was my mom, my dad, what color are the people in my ecosystem, what color are my kids. What color are my kids' teachers? Because each of those things have, anybody in your ecosystem has great power, because every person can control the environment. They affect the environment, the climate in the ecosystem. You can't afford to have unhappy people in your ecosystem because they will make you unhappy. So this is where IMA can help them. And I don't know. I mean, I think we've gone an hour already, and
we're about there. Yes, James. I mean, I think probably the best thing for us to do now is to tell people how they can get hold of the questionnaire, so they can find out for themselves what color they are, and obviously for their families as well.
Okay. Well, you, as you know, I mean, you have your own questionnaire with Collaboration Global. So that's the way I recommend it. Go to collaborationglobal-ima.com. answer 10 questions. It will identify which of the 4 IMA dialects that you speak, and the wavelength with which you feel and look at and filter the world, which you have in common with 25% of the world's population. And then if you want to know more, we've got a continuous flow of information until you say stop. And, it's not something people want to know what's the gimmick. There's no gimmick. Okay. There's you don't have to put your credit card in.
No.
I'm not selling the information. My goal is to have everyone in the world know this information, because as a result of it, your lives would be richer, fuller, happier, and you'll be more productive, more effective.
Beautiful. And of course, when you take that questionnaire, we will be happy to invite you to one of our Collaboration Global meetings so that you can meet a whole community who know what their colours are, and we'll be able to explain more carefully to you what that's about. And, maybe we can orchestrate our meetings that you can be in another room full of the same colour that you are. That would be interesting if we get that clever as time goes on. But certainly all of our members have currently taken that test. So not the test, it's not a test, it's a questionnaire.
Absolutely. Now you're going to be speaking. You're going to be speaking at my first IMA Fest.
Yes.
That I'm so excited about, because it's going to be it'll be an ongoing program. So anybody listening to this, if you go to imafest.online, you can see when the next one is. Our first one is on May 7th, but we're having them the plan is to have them every month. And it enables you to put together creative dreamers with technical doers to help create the type of world that you deserve to live in.
Yeah. And it's a great place to go if you're running a business and you think something's not quite right, something's not working, we should have hit the gold by now. It's not, what's missing? There's something missing, and it might be that other color is that person that's contributed. And so come to this IMA Fest and find out more, and you'll spot it and you go, oh, I think I need a green, that's what I haven't got.
Absolutely. And the idea is that you need a collection of all 4 IMA colors, because each complements in different areas. So as an example, to build an ideal project team, you need high reds to focus on bottom line results and insist on those results. You need high yellows like you and I to come up with ideas, promote ideas, and persuade others to get involved. You need a high blues to bring stability to the group and get people working together as a team. And you need high greens to ensure things are done properly and that all the systems are in place in order to make that happen. So, hey, listen, I've enjoyed it. I know I've probably gone on more.
Oh, we could have gone on for 2 hours, James. I'm just really grateful that we've kind of covered so much, and I've learned lots about you that I didn't know, and I thought I knew everything. Let's just sum this up. If you want to get a hold of James, probably the easiest way to do it is come to an IMA Fest, or come to a Collaboration Global session. So you can find those if you go to collaborationglobal.org. That's the website, and you can find the meeting information there, and you can book, or chase us up on Eventbrite and look for Collaboration Global, and you can book through that. It's always the last Tuesday of the month, and James will be there, and we can have a chat with him there. Or is there any other ways you want people to contact you, James?
I would say that my goal is to be accessible and answer anybody's questions, so they're welcome to get in touch with me if they just Google James Knight, probably, and IMA in particular.
Yeah.
It's got my contact details there. And
you're a busy boy on LinkedIn as well, so that's probably a good place to find you too.
Yeah, LinkedIn is wonderful, and using how you can use IMA to connect on LinkedIn to develop meaningful connections. That's something I'm really passionate on, because if you consider it's a collection of 750 million high reds, yellows, greens, and blues. And IMA is a digital age icebreaker that dissolves the high-tech freeze out. And I'm delighted to be able to show you how to do that as well.
You get the impression, if dear listener, that we've only just scratched the surface with Mr.
And I'm loving dealing with all the people in the collaboration global community. I've had some wonderful exchanges, and I just had a Zoom call with one of your members, with Rob Morgan, yesterday, and had a number of different exchanges with different people, and I'm loving it.
They're a very special crew, because ultimately their first question to most people is, how can I help? And that's all they want to do. They have their dreams, they have their mission, they have their vision for what they're going to create. They know what their genius is, and they just want to help people. So that's why, you know, it's such a buzz when we get those meetings going together. Listen, James, I'd like to thank you so much for your precious time today. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Hopefully, and I've got a page full of notes as well. Hopefully other people that are listening to this have been, you know, even if you're out there running and you've heard something that's useful and you've stopped and you just made a little note on your phone, it's really been really valuable for us. So thank you for being part of this today. And I look forward to working with you and exploring. I
love the idea, and also come to listen to you at IMAFest, and I think it's just going to be wonderful. I love being associated with you and this wonderful group that you've got.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you next time.
See you.